Hey everyone, welcome back to VritviTalks The Ambition Podcast. Today we are back with a guest, or should I say, a fellow podcaster and an entrepreneur. He has been working as a finance executive for Lakshmi Steel, and on the other hand, he is a creative director for Done For You podcasts. Today, he himself is a voice influencer who is making a mark with his podcast, Motivation Spark and Glitters of Life, which has 228,000 listeners and downloads from all over the world, which, in my view, is totally commendable. The value that is provided through these conversations with the guests that come on his podcast, the guests that are from various streams, is what his listeners find it totally worth it. They say for every emotion and message that comes forward, there is always a voice, and that is exactly what he stands for. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Rohit Kokane. Welcome to Repeat Talks Ambition Podcast. It's a pleasure to have another podcaster on my show. It's so rare that very few people that they share similar kind of interest, and that to something so unique like podcasting.
Yeah. So it is a pleasure to be here, Vritvi, and it is going to be a fun conversation. I'm totally honored to be over here. And as you said, like this is going to be an exciting conversation just because we being two podcasters, it's always a fun.
Yeah, correct. So I can tell something about myself that why did I enter into podcasting. But yes, I would love, and I'm sure my viewers, my listeners would love to know your side of the story. That why did you start podcasting? Say, for example, like for me, I think right from when I was a kid, I used to receive a lot of what do you say? A lot of appreciation when it comes to my command over language. The way I used to take part in elocution competitions and singing and all that stuff. So I knew for the fact that okay, my command over my language is very good, and also that my voice and my voice modulation with time, it has only improved, right? So it was until 2021 that I actually took it very seriously because I used to get a lot of compliments over my voice and the way I speak, the way I explain, and I used to get compliments like, whatever you say, it's so impactful that that we feel that, okay, this is going to stay with us for years to come. Right. So that was my perception. And also because it was my calling that I always wanted to get into motivational speaking and, something which creates an impact. Right.
Yeah.
But that is my side of the story. I really want to know, why did you start podcasting?
So Vritvi, as you said, like you shared your journey and it is truly commendable because then having a command and then creating something out of it requires a lot of efforts. And glad you started with a podcast because this medium is something very different. Now I can say with the proof that how attached I am with this particular mic and all the elements that comes with it. But if I have to talk about my journey, it is totally contrasting. It would be opposite of yours because then if I have to share it in more detail, like why I started, I would love to share like how I started because then that is something which will give people, which will give the listeners, the viewers, the exact kind of inspiration or the motivation that you don't need a kind of a certain background to start your own podcast or something like that, or to create any form of content. So basically, I was always fascinated to create something on internet. That was always on my mind. Okay, so it was a kind of a revolution that happened in India in 2016 when the Geo came into picture. And I was always fascinated with the kind of technology that was evolving. So with that kind of a fascination, I was inclined towards the gadgets. So I started my YouTube channel. I was like curious, like why not explore this unboxing thing and the tech review field. Yeah. But as I said earlier, like I don't come from a media background. Having that command, facing those cameras and etc. was a kind of a pain. But still I started. But a very less of success. It was just like me being a kind of a person who is located at a certain place where there was no lot of demand about such kind of initiatives. And even it was just an attempt, like ki chalo kuch karte yaar, matlab. So that attempt went for an year or so. It failed, and I eventually lost my interest. But then again, that kept into my mind. So like it was 2018, but then in 2019 again, I started thinking like what could be done. And see, it was my fascination, but I was very close to understanding the people, the life, and how it evolves, like in what way we are evolving, what can be done to make our life easier and better. Because see, we have all seen the kind of struggles that we all go through, be it your parents, be it your siblings or anything around us. This topic around life, this topic around self-help or the personal growth, the self-development, etc., were
Mm.
all close to me. And
Mm.
then I one day find this particular calling, and it was like the Instagram channel of Digital Pratik that came into picture. And then I saw like this is the kind of a medium he is using for his kind of a niche. So then
Yeah.
I thought like this sounds quite easy. Like that is all we think. It sounds easy.
Yeah.
It looks easy. So
Yeah.
again, that was a kind of an inclination. Like I can try this. So I started my podcast back then in 2019, and that was something which was related. So this is how it happened. But if you ask me why, then even I wasn't aware what kind of objective I want to fulfill. It was just my
Mm.
inner calling that I can share my voice, I can spread the
Mm.
whatever wisdom, the knowledge, the experience I
Mm.
have gained. Because
Mm.
then when you're in internet, people will always have a kind of attitude like कि थोड़ा बहुत कुछ सीखने लिया कि ज्ञान बांटने चले. So that is the
Yeah.
kind of attitude people will always have towards you. But then again, you have to make your own path. You have to craft your own journey. So it all started like it wasn't a research based thing, but then I started with it. The name came into picture. I started with Glitters of Life podcast in the first place, which
Yes.
was in English. Then started doing Motivation Spark. So ये सारे नाम, ये सारी जो journey है, it just came. Like there wasn't a thought process behind it. But then eventually, when it started, I saw kind of a like it wasn't growing. The Glitters of
Mm.
Life failed miserably because then I wasn't getting a kind of a downloads. But I still kept going because
Mm.
then it was more important. Right now, it might have got like 39 episodes, but with very less thousands of downloads or listens.
Mm.
So what I could infer is that the people want to connect with your emotions, and if you're able to give those kind of emotions, if you're able to give those kind of stories to the people, then they will be able to connect better with your emotions, with your story. And that is how the Motivation Spark was born. Then I started doing it in Hindi. But again,
Mm.
going back to the time, like I didn't have a command over English, Hindi or something
Mm.
like that. Not a kind of a media thing, because जो जिस प्रकार से रेडियो जॉकी वगैरह वो बोलते हैं,
Yeah. Yeah.
need the same kind of energy with respect to podcast as well, and that
Yeah.
was clearly lacking back then. Okay, but I kept on doing. Like I started with my mobile phone. Even today, people are recommending that like start with your mobile phone, but I'm against it. I'm opposed to that particular advice. But yeah, that was a kind of a story. And then when Motivation Spark started doing well, then I realized that no, this is something I can't just do for my kind of a hobby. Okay,
Mm.
you can stay active, you can be creative with such kind of initiatives, but then you need to have kind of certain elements so that it can help you to make some kind of money, or like it will fulfill your dreams. Okay, so
Correct.
that was a kind of a journey I had, and then kept on doing, launched multiple episodes. It is growing well at times. So that is the part and parcel of it. But again, to be able to network with the people, to be able to have this kind of conversation, this is the true essence of it. Because then if you are able to make a new connection each and every day through this kind of a medium, then nothing can be better than that. So this is how I started. Like that was my how. That is like right now, if you ask me what, then there are a lot of things like I have transitioned again into a
Yeah.
kind of a role that I like create strategies and concept for the clients with respect to podcast shows. So that is how like you just have to keep on going. Opportunities will fall into your place, but then patience is the key. That is what I would
Yeah.
like to say.
Correct. So even when I started podcasting back then, even I felt like यार मतलब पता नहीं अगर जान पहचान वालों ने भी सुन लिया तो भी बहुत है, like yeah,
बिल्कुल.
exactly. I mean for us just to because in a way it's a form of expression, right? And I think podcasters they start with podcast because उतना कैमरा के सामने आके बात करने का confidence इतना नहीं होता है, and it's
Right.
a gradual process, like you said
Yeah.
also it's a gradual process, right? So when I also started, I used to like write my scripts, and because the rooms were not soundproof, and we had no studio and all, so we started back then very same phone se record karna and then putting
Exactly.
it out there, editing it on the phone and all that stuff. But later on, when I started receiving great reviews, some good and bad, both reviews, but touchwood, most of them were good reviews because the content was good. So, I received quite a lot of good reviews, and that is how there is always a scope of improvement in every damn thing that you do.
Yeah,
Right?
totally.
Yeah. But
And
then
I would like to
back
add, like, yeah, as you said, like, we all start at somewhere. So who is
Yeah.
listening to your podcast or who is backing you, doesn't
Yeah.
matter. You just have to keep on doing. Because if I have to talk about myself, like my podcast, I never shared my episodes with my parents. But today they always ask, like, "Ye kya naya aaya hai? What is the new
Yeah.
thing that you are bringing?" And they know, like,
Right.
the kind of episodes right now I'm bringing, they are quite intriguing. And that is how
Yeah.
you just have to keep on doing the good work. Because then if they are able to share into their network, again, you get a good amount of praise as well. So it happens,
Correct.
like you break that particular shell and then you come out of it and then grow gradually.
Right. But then also, like, just to mention that podcasting is very new in our country, right? It is a huge, huge market in the US and in European, some of the European countries, of course, right? But in US and Canada, it's like a huge market. Like
Yeah,
every one person out of 50 people has a podcast over there, right?
exactly.
So when we talk about podcast here in India also, uh, not many people are aware about it. That is also one challenge that a lot of podcasters face, right? Has this happened with you also? Like initially, कि यार पता नहीं कौन सुनेगा, लोगों को तो पता भी नहीं है podcast में क्या है, you know?
A very thoughtful question, Vritvi. And again, like we all face such kind of situations because
Yeah.
then whatever we are doing, India में ना एक mentality है. Whatever you will start doing, people just want a kind of results into terms of like what monetary
Money.
benefit you are
Yes.
getting.
Yes.
सो वॉट
Yes.
एवर यू वर्क यू डू, अगर आप आधा घंटा इसमें कुछ कर लेते हो, आधा घंटा एडिटिंग में करते हो, आधा घंटा पोस्ट प्रोडक्शन प्रोसेस में लगाते हो, सो दे जस्ट स्टार्ट कैलकुलेटिंग यार 3 घंटे तूने वेस्ट किया एंड व्हाट यू आर गेटिंग आउट ऑफ इट. Okay, so
Nothing.
that is the kind of mentality. Yeah, exactly nothing.
Yeah,
You won't be
exactly.
getting nothing.
Yeah.
Like you'll be getting nothing. That is how it works, because then
Yeah.
it is more about creating value. It is more about creating that particular impact and how long you are going to stay into that particular game. Because then I have seen like people doing it for like 5 to 7 years, and then they have started getting the deals, they have started getting the sponsorships. So that is how it the
Exactly.
kind of impact it is creating. So if you ask me like what kind of thoughts or what kind of barriers I had into my journey, there were many. Like as I said, I come from a background like I'm into business and I'm doing this as a kind of a thing that started as a side hustle. Okay, so
Hmm.
there was always a kind of a thing कि यार इसमें से कैसा पैसा बनेगा, how I'm
Yeah.
going to grow ahead into this particular
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
because then I'm not allowing my full time into this, I can't. But then how I'm going to make best out of it. So it all started with the kind of thing कि phone पे record किया, सारी चीजें की. But then that spark, that kind of a spike that eventually happened kept me going, because then people started listening to it. पहले
Yeah.
आवाज काफी बुरी थी, पहले जो टोन था, पिच था, सारी चीजें खराब थी.
Yeah.
But then what usually matters is the kind of value you are giving, the kind of message you
Yeah.
are spreading. Right now,
Correct.
if I'm not sharing a kind of episode with the audience, still मेरे DM में कुछ ना कुछ reviews आ जाते हैं, feedback आ जाते हैं कि like I listen to your
किसी पुराने
podcast, this is
एपिसोड को
something.
देख
हाँ,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. Okay, and even I am like I get a kind of a feeling, मैं लोगों को खुद जाके बोलता हूँ कि मेरे जो पुराने एपिसोड्स हैं ना वो इतने खास नहीं है, because then I just started out there. So you
Yeah.
just have to be very honest. I never started this kind
Make
of
it
a thing
real.
for.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to sound cool on internet. It is just my thought of kind of expressing myself, because then
Yes.
it is the best kind of a medium. So whatever the way technology is evolving, वो सारे thought process, वो सारे जो back of the mind हमारे इसमें चलते रहता है कि कैसे होगा आगे. So you just
Yeah.
don't have to think a lot about it. Be it AI, be it kind of a सारी चीजें जो technologically advancement होगी, no one can take out the strategy that you are putting into place. No one can take out your emotions. So if you ask me like if you ask me a kind of a emotional question, and if I get emotional during that particular response, AI can't do that. So that is
Yeah.
how we just have to
Correct.
evolve. So this is the best medium. Like with text, you can copy it, paste it.
Paste it.
But with the voice, that is
You
highly
cannot.
impossible. If you have a script, you can follow it, but then it will reflect in your voice. Is it a scripted
Yes.
one, or is it
Yes.
the kind of original one? Right now, we are having this kind of a candid conversation. So
Yeah.
let yourself humble, let yourself speak out with that kind of enthusiasm, and the story will happen. But again, going back to the question, going back to the kind of a journey, सारी चीजें होती थी, मतलब कि कौन सुनेगा, कैसे आगे बढ़ेगा.
Yeah.
But it was a kind of a one man army. सारी चीजें करनी पड़ती थी, like from calling upon the guest to
Yeah.
scheduling the episodes, to then post production, like editing करो, marketing करो.
Yeah.
Marketing in
Yeah.
terms of like you better understand marketing कि कितनी सारी efforts लेनी पड़ती. Posting on social media is not just a kind of a marketing. Now I have understood
No.
that. Okay, so that is how like I'm increasing the kind of mediums that I want to promote my show from. So it could be like in recent times, like in near future, I will be starting writing blogs. I could start
Yeah.
newsletter. So these are the ways that I want to grow with, and that is how it will help the audience to discover your podcast, or anyone would be loving to start their
Yeah.
own podcast. Have this kind of thought into my mind, into your mind, that even when you're starting your podcast, make sure that you're going to bring out these stories, and it is not just for the sake of social media.
Yeah.
There is a different set of audience for listening to the podcast. So you are having your own social media with respect to that particular show. So don't compare how many likes, don't compare how many comments you are getting for the kind of marketing you are doing for your show. There will be a separate base, and you'll grow eventually with that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, in India, जितने भी podcasts हैं, they're all based on either mental health, या, अच्छा हम depression में गए थे और ये हुआ था, वो हुआ था, and I think the audience is saturated listening to these sad stories. They want to listen to real journeys of people out there, right? Be it your failure stories, or be it your success stories, or how did you reach from 0 to 10 to 100. People are more interested into listening stories and genuine
Exactly.
stories.
Yeah, and that is happening. I'm able to craft more kind of a creative strategy with respect to that, because then today I talked about a kind of a show that we launched. It was around financial freedom for women. Then we have a
Hmm.
kind of a show where a person is talking about like how they can simplify the teenage life for a person. So we have a
Hmm.
podcast around career, like how you can transition from one career to another. So these are the kind of people who are coming into the podcasting landscape, and that is a very healthy sign, because then
Yes,
the kind of stories, the kind of episodes, the kind of value listening experience we are getting through the Indian podcast, we are like,
yes.
we should be sure about like we are bringing in the audio revolution in India.
Yes, yes, definitely. And it's just not about the revolution, like you said, that people are interested into listening stories, but I strongly feel that the kind of variations, kind of frequencies that your voice can send through somebody and can impact their subconscious mind deeply, that is next to impossible to any other form of expression or technology, right? See, I'm an author.
Right.
I know the power of words. I am a podcaster, and also I'm a YouTuber. But I still feel that the impact that what books or what a voice can do is something commendable, and it's incomparable to anything else. Not reels or not some dancing or nothing. With no offense though, that is also a form of
Exactly.
entertainment and form of expression. But still, I feel that yes, people recognize anybody through their voice, and that is
That is
where
very true.
voice branding comes into picture.
Yeah, and more people are turning towards a kind of even if we talk about the platforms, more and more platforms like Spotify, they are wanting more kind of podcast into the knowledge and learning phase. So when we talk
Yes,
about the knowledge and learning, it should add some kind of value. So
exactly.
see, we are not talking about the typical self-help thing or something like that. Self-help is necessary. People will lash at you on social media like कि self-help काफी बकवास होता है, इसमें कुछ होता नहीं है. It is
Yes,
more about how you do
yes.
it. But
Yeah,
then
yeah.
at some point of time, you always need that kind of a backing that yes, someone is pushing you and then you are taking efforts, and ultimately it is more about self discipline. So सारी चीजें, सारे एपिसोड्स, सारे टाइप ऑफ niches, हर चीज मायने रखती है, बट देन
Yes.
हाउ यू आर मेकिंग इट क्रिएटिव, व्हाट काइंड ऑफ लर्निंग एक्सपीरियंस द पर्सन इज गेटिंग, बिकॉज ही और शी इज इन्वेस्टिंग 30 or 40 or 1 hour of his or her
His
time into that
life.
particular
Yeah,
content.
his
Yeah,
life. Yeah.
exactly. So if you're not rewarding them with a kind of a content that should be relatable with the audience, then I'm pretty sure that the kind of growth you are seeking won't be a quite good thing. So
Yes.
make sure that you're putting in a lot of efforts. Think about like what way you can get creative, because then I have done solo podcast, I have done the interviews thing
Yes,
for a
podcast.
longest
Yes.
period of time. Yeah, now I did the co-host pattern as well. I'm again back with that kind of a pattern, because then
Hmm.
when you're trying out, when you're experimenting a lot of things,
Yes.
it becomes quite easier to assess the kind of
Connect
trend
with
with
the
respect to the,
audience.
yeah,
Yes.
exactly, what people want to listen. Because then if you're talking about the interview thing, अभी यहाँ पे हम candid discussion कर रहे हैं, you are offering your insights as well, even
Yes.
I'm doing the same. But at times what usually happens is that you're just asking questions and the subject expert person is speaking. That usually
Yes.
happens because they are
Yes.
expert into their own domain. Okay,
Yes.
right now we have the relatability because you two host a podcast, but then when you host a in a kind of a pattern ki co-host pattern hai, so you take
Hmm.
one subject and then you speak about your own perspectives, the person will speak about their own perspectives. So in
Yes.
a way यहाँ पे आपको एक सारी चीजों का source मिल जाता है कि like you can take better decisions accordingly. So this is the kind
Correct.
of a medium that offers you the flexibility, and it is totally possible to have those random conversation that makes an insightful type of content as well.
Yes. Yes. But like I said, the impact of words, right, through maybe books or through voice frequencies or anything, right? So, do you have any take on it? Like, how do
Absolutely.
you
See, like,
connect with only not just podcasts, but voice branding as a whole? Like, there are, say, for example, Amitabh Bachchan, right? जैसे
yeah,
COVID-19 के लिए उनकी आवाज ली गई for the caller tunes and all that stuff.
exactly.
Alexa, right? And there are many more such voices that are so recognizable and so prominent that okay, you know what? Okay, ये तो इनकी आवाज है, right? So that is also one part because see, not to be shy to accept that yes, if at all we are putting any kind of content out there, we are also looking out for some kind of fame after a point in that, right? So
Absolutely.
yes, yes. So what's your take on it, like voice branding as a whole?
Voice branding is going to be the next thing, because what I feel is that if you are able to connect with that particular voice, people are able to assess the kind of emotions, the kind of feelings you have got, and then it creates an impact, because you are regarded as a thought leader into that particular industry.
Yes,
That is the
yes.
kind of impact it creates. beat anyone. Like we have seen with respect to, so you given me an example of Amitabh Bachchan. So if we consider the Bollywood movies, we always had a kind of a, like 90s kid को पता है कि अगर वो बॉलीवुड मूवी में सॉन्ग है तो इट कुड बी लाइक विद द हीरोइन अलका याग्निक, हीरो है
Yeah,
कुमार सानू है, उदित नारायण है. तो
yeah.
दैट इज द काइंड, वो आपको आदत लग चुकी थी, मतलब कि शाहरुख का अगर पिक्चर है तो ये सिंगर्स हो सकते हैं, या फिर
Mm,
माधुरी है तो ये सिंगर्स हो सकते हैं.
mm,
So
mm.
again, that is the kind of impact it creates. With respect
Yeah.
to the changing dynamics of the audio industry, you might have seen like how audio transition, like रेडियो काफी ज्यादा सुनाया जाता था, बट
Yes. Yes.
like ऑन द गो कंटेंट अभी पॉडकास्ट पे शिफ्ट हुआ है बिकॉज पीपल वांट मोर काइंड ऑफ अ knowledge based thing to consume. So it is
Mm.
how it creates an impact. So when we talk
Yes.
about the idea of voice branding, so you always have that backing up into your subconscious mind कि ये किसकी आवाज है. So you
Yeah.
even remember the name of the kind of people who you listen to always. So be it
Yes.
RJs, कोई भी अगर RJ है तो उसकी आवाज या फिर उनकी आवाज आपके दिमाग में, आपके जहन में रह जाती है. So that is
Yeah.
the kind of impact it creates. And yesterday again, like I got an opportunity for voiceover. So that was something which came for the first time from my own city. तो
Oh,
आई
that's
गॉट एन
lovely.
या आई गॉट एन वीडियो, लाइक कि ये वीडियो है, उसमें मैं पहले ही वॉइस ओवर किया था, बट दैट
Okay.
पर्टिकुलर वॉइस ओवर वाज नॉट अप टू द मार्क. तो मैंने वो
Okay.
सुना, एंड दैट इज हाउ, लाइक कि अगर आप भी उसको कुछ कमिट कर पा रहे हो, अगर आपकी आवाज दे पा रहे हो, सो
Yeah.
दैट इज हाउ इट क्रिएट्स इम्पैक्ट. द पर्सन नोज लाइक ही हैज गॉट अ वॉइस एंड देन इट कैन क्रिएट एन इम्पैक्ट. एंड आई ऑफन गेट कॉम्प्लीमेंट फॉर माई वॉइस, like even the person, people say like you are totally based for radio, but I never tried that. Radio demands a quite lot of different energy. It is totally different than, you just have to be very spontaneous, you just have to be very
Yeah.
active with your thoughts. With respect to
Yes.
podcasting, it is quite it's quite a like slow process. You can speak at your own speed, or like you can vary with respect to that. But again, the voice branding, that is going to be a totally thing, because then people recognize your voice, people recognize your efforts, your brand, your identity, everything is attached to that particular thing. And whatever
Yeah.
I am today on social media is just because of my podcast. Mark my word, because I am into business, I'd never share about finance and taxation or whatever business I'm into, but I all
Mhm.
created content for my podcast. That is how I'm putting out words, I'm expressing myself. And
Yes.
even if like you and me is not listening to a podcast, but people know us, like you are bringing a great kind of content, you are bringing in great kind of episodes. So
Yes.
there are always people who are acknowledging your efforts. So remember this thing, the voice branding in various ways is going to impact your career, because it is something that creates, it is something that turns out to be a, like it could be a sales pitch as well. So
Yeah.
आपको कितने opportunities मिलेंगे आपकी just voice से. So if you are writing a text and if you are speaking about something that you want to say, it will create a
Yeah.
huge difference. So that is how I see, like अगर आपको कुछ भी करना है, just try to speak your mind and never shy in making the kind of first impression. You could be like not having a great experience with initial days, but then again,
Yeah.
once you try, keep doing it again and again, the kind of brand you're shaping, the kind of learning curve that you get with respect to your voice, that will then turn into a great kind of a branding for yourself. So voice branding is going to stay, even though we have a lot of like Alexa and thing, but then it is in the set
Yeah.
manner. Whatever you
Yes.
expect, they will just respond into that set manner. But you get to be creative, you get to be funny, you get to be angry as well. So these are filled with all the emotions that you want to tell to the world. So I feel that the future is bright with respect to voice, the future is
Voice.
bright with respect to podcast as well.
Yeah. That's a lovely, insightful piece that you have said. Yes, voice branding is here to stay, and I hope our country gets more such podcasters, and we are all able to make a difference into people's lives. Because आजकल ऐसा हो गया है ना कि यूएस में तो खैर ऐसा है आजकल कि हर कोई उठ के पॉडकास्टर बनना चाहता है, राइट, विदाउट हैविंग देयर ओन पर्टिकुलर नीश, राइट. से फॉर एग्जांपल, लाइक आई स्टार्टेड विद रिपी टॉक्स initially, because I just wanted to share stories with a particular lesson to it, with a particular moral to it, right? And
Yeah.
then I experimented with Hindi, English as a mixed language. And then once I launched my book, so I made it like in alignment with my book that, okay, this is going to be Vritvi Talks, the Ambition Podcast,
Yeah.
right?
बहुत सारी चीजें इंपॉर्टेंट है. आई जस्ट वांट टू ऐड वन थिंग आउट हियर, जैसे कि यू गिव मी एग्जांपल ऑफ लाइक अमेरिका, यूरोप. वहां पे
Yeah.
ना जितने भी पॉडकास्ट क्रिएट होते हैं, दे आर टोटली वैल्यू ओरिएंटेड. सो
Yeah.
पीपल आर नॉट लाइक लैशिंग आउट एट देम. तो वहां पे सुनने वाले भी है लोग. हियर इन इंडिया इट इज जस्ट इन अ प्रोग्रेसिंग स्टेज, जहाँ पे हमें बस पॉपुलर पॉडकास्टर पता है. बट
हाँ.
इफ यू ट्यून टू आर काइंड ऑफ shows, again you'll get a
Yeah.
kind of episodes that are value of listening. Okay,
Yes.
so it would be worth of spending your time onto our podcast as well, because then we are just trying an effort. It is just because कि हमारे पास वो सारी चीजें, मतलब कहते हैं ना कि visibility नहीं है with respect to the kind of money that we can pump it, but again we are
Yes.
trying our best and we are creating the efforts to create wholesome experience for our listeners as well.
Yes. So do you think that our youth should create much more such valuable content on voice branding, or have more podcasts in the future?
Definitely, that is one thing, because then if you ask me what keeps you more creative, what keeps you more engaged, I definitely see like podcast is such a kind of a project that you can take, because then it is not just about putting out your voice. It is more about like how creatively you can think, what is the thought process behind the kind of topic that you want to talk about, and how you want to portray your message. Because then
Yes.
अगर हर एक का conclusion अलग अलग है, so if you take a similar story and if you want to like align it with a better analogy and align it with a better anecdote, then each and every person might have their own version, and that makes
Yes.
this podcasting journey a very beautiful one. So if someone is wanting to start their own podcast, definitely they should. But again, as I said, as you know, patience is required. You
Yes.
can't just wait into like 10-15 episodes. You'll be able to see results, but then it is more about visibility, putting that work into place and stay active where your listeners, your viewers are there, and then you can build together.
That's a lovely message that you have put across. Thank you so much, Rohit. It was a great, fun-filled, insightful conversation. And I hope the next time we have this kind of episode again, we would be talking more about more young, new podcasters, or maybe we could have a group discussion like this, like, how
Definitely.
times have changed post COVID. And definitely, I think podcast and all actually it got a good hype after COVID because people
Yeah.
started feeling like they are so lonely out there, and they also find some comfort in listening to somebody or somebody else's stories. Maybe it inspires them, maybe it pushes them to live a better life or do something better with their life.
Exactly. And I'm sure like whatever time we get for recording or whatever time we are allotting, it is always going to shortfall, because this kind of a
Yeah.
topic is very close to my heart. I can go
Yes.
on and on for hours. So
Yes.
definitely, but again, whatever insights we have shared, whatever stories we have shared today, I'm totally in awe that people will fall into love with such kind of stories, and they'll start creating more and more content with respect to voice, with respect to
Yes.
podcast, and they can make their own journey very memorable one.
Yes. Thank you so much, Rohit, for sharing your story and sharing out your valuable time and coming on my show.
It is my pleasure, and you are a great host. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I wish you all the best for your future endeavors as well, Vritvi.
Thank you so much, Rohit. My pleasure.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, have you subscribed to my channel yet? Subscribe now